Yo, what is up? I'm Roy CS, and today I'm making a video that I've been wanting to make for a while now. I'm going to be ranking every single knife in CSGO so far as we shift into the release of CS2. So right here we have every single knife so far. We're going to be looking at them in game, and we're going to be doing a different way of rating the knives. We're going to put each one of these knives into 3 categories. We're going to be rating 3 different categories of the knife. First is the pull-out animation, if it has good pull-out game or not. Second is the inspect. We're counting the rare inspect unless it doesn't have one. And lastly, the knife itself. So just be warned, there are some crazy rankings in here that I don't really agree with at the end, but if we're doing it with this point system, it's where it ended up, so you'll see what I mean. Okay, first up we have the Navaja knife right here. It is the cheapest knife in the game if you're not aware. It doesn't take a very intelligent person to understand why it's the cheapest knife in the game, but if we see the pull out here, it does offer a pull out animation. Does that mean it has good pull out game? No, not really. So pull out gets a 3 out of 10. Second is the rare animation. No rare animation, this is just the default animation of the Navaja knife. Boring and shite. 2 out of 10. Lastly, the knife itself, as you can see, I'm gonna give it a 2 out of 10 as well. That brings the total score of the Navaja knife at a 7 out of a possible 30 points. That's going straight into the shite tier list. Regardless of the points or not, I'd be putting this at the very bottom. You could even argue the default knife is better than the Navaja. I think I can hate on the Navaja as much as I want. It was my first ever knife, and it was the only knife I had for a good like 7 months, so it's shite. Next up we have the Nomad knife. It's a newer knife, it's in the Shattered Web collection, and does have a pretty cool pull out. I'm not a big fan of it personally. I mean, you're just hurting your finger, that's about it. It's not that cool to me, but at least it offers a pull-out animation that's unique, and it's not very basic, so for that I give it a 5 out of 10. Next is the inspect. Pretty decent inspect, you're just flipping it in your finger, you know, pretty clean. I'm gonna give that a 6 out of 10 for the inspect. Next is the knife itself. So basic, I mean, it's a knife at the end of the day. It's not horrible, it's not amazing, it's just a 5 out of 10. So with 16 points, the Nomad sits at a comfortable B tier, right in the middle. Probably out of all these knives, this would be the most mid knife in terms of points. Next we have the sexy, the fabled butterfly knife. I'm a bit biased, you know, my last 4 knives have been butterflies. I love them ever since I figured out that you could literally just spam this animation with FR, you know, constantly. That was the moment I became in love with it, and I've just had butterflies ever since. So in my opinion, it's the best knife in the game, and that reflects its price. It's the most expensive knife in the game as well. Pretty obvious why. But with the pull out, it offers 2 different kinds, a rare and a default pull out. Both are pretty sick. The rare pull out though, it's a little bit sexier. You do have a little flip involved. There it is. So nice. And the inspect, the default or the rare inspect, both are beautiful. There's the rare inspect. Too sexy, man. Fuck. The pull out gets a 9 out of 10. The rare inspect gets a perfect 10 out of 10. And then the knife itself an 8 out of 10 because there are a few better looking knives. Maybe 1 or 2 that are just better looking, setting aside the animations. So with 27 total points, you already know the butterfly's going straight to S tier, no explanations needed. So next we have the Karambit. Now the Karambit, probably the most iconic knife in the entire game. It's the OG, it's the Karambit. What can you say? There's only 2 different curved knives. This is the better one in terms of looks. It's the second most expensive knife. For most skins that it offers, it's the second most. And it's a beautiful knife, man. If Butterfly didn't exist, then I would have the Karambit. Does it have pull-out game? Oh, it definitely has pull-out game. Incredible pull-out game. This is just the best when you shoot an op shot and you just switch the knife real quick. Too nice. There's no rare pullout, but doesn't even need one, to be honest. Its only downside is its inspect. Now its inspect does not have a rare inspect either, but doesn't really need one. You can just infinitely spin it, but I'm not going to contribute that into the rating. It's just going to be the inspect itself, and it's nothing too cool, but you do get to flip it in your hand and you get a nice view of the knife. So pullout gets an 8 out of 10 and the inspect gets a 7 out of 10. Now the knife itself, we actually do have another 10. This is a 10 out of 10 knife. Best knife in the game, not counting any animations, of course. That brings the Karambit at 25 total points, straight to the S tier. Next we have the Huntsman knife, very underrated knife, the best budget knife in my opinion. It's a great knife. We have the pullout, which is arguably one of the best in the game. You have this flip, which you can do. It's the default animation too, so you can do it as many times as you want in game. It's amazing, absolutely amazing. The inspect, however, is pretty boring. So for pullout, it gets an 8 out of 10. Amazing pullout. And the inspect, a 4 out of 10. Very, very basic. And the knife itself is a 6 out of 10. It's a bit better than the Nomad knife, I would say, 100%. So that brings the Huntsman at 18 total points, and it gets straight to the B tier. Next we have the FaZe knife. Not a huge fan of it, but does have a pull-out animation similar to the Navaja. It's a bit better because, you know, it flips out kind of. The inspect animation, though, it actually has the rarest inspect animation in the entire game. Rare inspect, and it is at a 1 in 101 chance of happening, which is this animation right here where you just balance it on your hand. It's very cool. That's not even the default animation. Pullout gets a 4 out of 10. The inspects get an 8 out of 10. And the knife itself, unfortunately for the Falchion, 4 out of 10. Next is the flip knife. Very controversial knife. I've seen a lot of people actually hate this knife. I think it's, you know, kind of fits right in the middle. It's alright. It's got a very basic yet clean pull-out animation. No unique pull-out, unfortunately. Same with the inspect. Very basic. The best part of this knife is the knife itself. Pull-out animation gets a 3 out of 10. Inspect gets a 4 out of 10 for being just so boring. And the knife itself, 5 out of 10. Not bad though, not a bad looking knife at all. I forgot to rate the FaZe knife actually. It has 16 points, which means it's going to the B tier. And the flip knife gets only 12 points, which means it will be our first C tier knife. Next is the Bowie knife. Now the Bowie's lucky that we're doing this tier list based on a point system, because if it wasn't for that, this knife would be going straight to C or shite tier. And the reason being is, if you have gloves, you know exactly what I'm talking about. The Bowie knife is the only knife in the game where you only see one of your hands. And if you have gloves, you don't want to see that. Look at this right here. Pandora's box with the Bowie knife, that would be a complete sin. That would be disgusting. One hand is visible? No, that's not it. If you don't have gloves, it's a different story. Then it's a pretty cool knife. So as much as I hate the Bowie knife, we're just basing this on animations and the knife itself. So, pull out. Very sexy. You can just, you know, spam this. It's a nice little flip in your hand next to your arm. It's pretty cool. Inspect animation is even better in my opinion. You kind of flip it. It's facing towards you. Looks really cool. Very nice. You can even, you know, kind of spin it around with FR. And the knife itself, pretty damn big. The Bowie's pullout gets a 6 out of 10. The inspect of the Bowie gets a 7 out of 10. And the knife itself, a 6 out of 10. So with 19 points, the Bowie knife is going right to the B tier. And we are about halfway done with this tier list, I think. Next we have the bayonet knife, not the M9 bayonet, but the regular bayonet knife. It's a fan favorite knife, and it's pretty expensive. It's one of my favorite knives in the game. It does have a very, very nice pullout. One of the best in the game. Amazing. Its inspect animation is its weak point. No rare inspect animations offered, and the default one is just kind of basic. And the knife itself, of course, is beautiful. Beautiful knife. best part about it, in my opinion, is probably the pull out. And the pull out is going to get an 8 out of 10. The inspect's getting a 4 out of 10, unfortunately. And the knife itself, an 8 out of 10. Very nice knife. So with the Bayo getting 20 points, it's going to be our first A tier knife. Next is the gut knife, one of the cheapest knives in the game. Does not look very good, but it does have an incredible pull-out animation for some odd reason, and that's probably its best aspect. Another basic inspect, same as the bayonet. And of course, the worst part about it is the knife itself. It's ugly, it's shite. Just look at it. Look at it, man. Pull-out's very nice though. Pull-out gets a 7 out of 10. The inspect gets a 4 out of 10. And the knife itself a 3 out of 10. Very shite. So with 14 points, the gut knife will be going in C tier. I'm surprised it didn't make it in shite tier, to be honest, because I usually do put the Navaja and the gut knife in the same tier when rating knives. Next is the Stiletto knife. Skinny ass, pencil ass knife, but you know, still pretty decent. The pull out, you get a nice flip animation, pretty clean. And the inspect, very nice. You can infinitely do this by holding F. So you can infinitely do this. Very sexy. And the knife itself, yeah. We have different tastes, I guess. But the Stiletto gets a 6 out of 10 for pull out. The inspect animation, the rare one, gets an 8 out of 10. Very nice. And the knife itself, a 5 out of 10. So with 19 points, the Stiletto is going to the B tier as well. It's a lot of B tier knives, as you can see. Oh nah. Another controversial knife. Shadow daggers, or butt plugs, is what I call them, because I hate these things. Now the pull out, I can't lie, it's pretty decent, it's pretty cool. And the inspect, also cool, a little better than the pull out. Especially how you can just flip this in game, pretty cool, very sexy. The knives themselves, however, disgusting. I don't care what you say. So as far as pull-out animation, they get a 5 out of 10. They do offer something, and they're pretty cool. And it's decent, you know, I can't lie. And the inspect gets a 6 out of 10. Slightly better. Now the knives themselves, unfortunately, for Shadow Dagger enjoyers, it's a 3 out of 10. Don't be too upset, because with 14 points, it almost gets to the B tier, surprisingly. Deserves less than what it got in my opinion, but with 14 points, it is not in shite tier. It is in the C tier. Now next is the survival knife. From what I remember, it does have a rare pullout as well. Yes, there's its rare pullout right there. The only knife in the game, from what I recall, where you literally flip the knife up and you catch it. That's pretty damn cool, man. Pretty nice. And you have its inspect, which it's basic, but it is unique, so I give it credit. Unique pullout and a unique inspect. The knife itself is very mid, but the survival is going to get a 6 out of 10 for pullout, and the inspect is going to get a 4 out of 10, with the knife itself getting a 4 out of 10 as well. And with 14 points, it is going to the C tier. Next is the Paracord knife. This would be one of my favorite knives if it actually had some decent animations, but the only cool thing it has is the pull out. Its inspect animation is very basic, unfortunately, but at least you get to flip it in your hand. It does make a interesting sound. The pull out's very nice though. You flip it to the other hand. Very clean, slick knife. Even the handle's pretty nice. So the knife itself gets a 6 out of 10, with the inspect getting a 5 out of 10. And the pull out getting a 5 out of 10. Very unique knife though. So with 16 points, the Paracord is going to the B tier. And this is what our tier list is looking so far. Oh, just wait till we get the M9 bayonets. Next is the Talon, one of my favorite knives ever. It's up there with the Karambit. I think the Karambit looks a bit better, but what the Talon does offer is better animations than the Karambit. Look at that. That is the rare inspect of the Talon knife. And if you're wondering, you can infinitely do this just by holding F. Its pull out's even cool too. You got a little flip going on with the knife. and then you can go straight to the rare animation if you get lucky enough. And then the knife itself, it's got that kind of tan handle for all skins. And then the blade itself, it is longer than the karambit, but also skinnier. Pull out gets a 7 out of 10. And the rare animation gets a 9 out of 10 for being so sexy. And the knife itself gets an 8 out of 10. Same as the butterfly. So with 24 points, the Talon almost makes it to the S tier, 1 point away, but not quite S tier according to our rating. Next is the Ursus knife. This knife is what I would say is a acquired taste. I didn't like it at first, you probably don't either, but I do think it's an acquired taste. I found a liking to this knife the more I started playing the game, the more I started seeing it. And its pull out got a cool little flips, very quick, but it's clean. It has a nice animation, and its inspect is even better. You can just infinitely do this. You can walk and, you know, spin this. You can twirl it in your hands. Very cool. I love this animation, man. The knife, however, it's like it's a box cutter, man. It doesn't offer something too crazy, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't need to be too flashy. It's good for what it is, definitely. The pull out animation for the Ursus gets a 6 out of 10. And the inspect animation gets a 8 out of 10, and the knife itself 5 out of 10. Very kind of basic. So with 19 points, it almost makes it to the A tier, but not quite. And we are left with 3 more knives. Next up is the M9 bayonet knife. This one's going to be very controversial. Now, I understand the M9 bayonet is objectively the 3rd best knife in the game. I understand it's one of the most expensive knives in the game as well. I get it. I understand. I think it is the 3rd best knife in the game. But with this rating, it's not going to get the tier that you think it's going to get. Because its pull out is nice, but it's very basic. Especially the inspect. It's incredibly boring. I mean, this is a very old knife in its defense, but unfortunately that's why its animations aren't that cool. The knife itself is amazing though. It's a huge blade, very flashy if you have a nice fade on it or a Doppler. The M9 bayonet's pull out gets a 5 out of 10. The inspect gets a 4 out of 10. It's just the default animation, but the knife itself gets a 9 out of 10. Very nice rating for the knife. So with only 18 points, unfortunately I have to put the M9 bayonet in the B tier. But look, I'm telling you right now, it's the 3rd best knife in the game, so it's only B tier because of our point system. So next up we have the skeleton, the newest knife in CSGO and the last knife of CSGO. Its pullout is fucking immaculate. As you can see, imagine hitting this pullout in the middle of the game. It's so nice, man. I've never had a skeleton knife yet, but I do want one. It's a beautiful knife. And then the twirl on your finger for the rare inspect, that's sexy. That is sexy. And the knife itself too is very cool. You have a fucking infinity blade, a mini infinity blade if you get that reference, in your hand. Such a nice knife, man. The pullout gets a 9 out of 10, and the animation gets a 9 out of 10 as well, and the knife itself gets an 8 out of 10. So with 26 total points, the skeleton knife is going to the S tier. And lastly, we have the classic knife. The last knife of the video is the classic knife. If you like this knife, you are an old head, sadly. You are an old head who played 1.6 or Source or whatever the old ass one it was that had this knife. It does not look good, man. That pattern does not look cool. The inspect is okay, you know what, it's decent. I'll give you that, it's decent. What is cool and very unique about this knife is it has an idle animation. I don't know if any other knife has an idle animation. I'm not even doing anything and you can see this little finger thing. That's pretty cool, I can't lie. Pull out is ass though. It's ass, man. No pull out game at all. Pull out gets a 3 out of 10. Inspect gets a 6 out of 10, and the knife itself, I'm sorry, but it's a 4 out of 10. It sucks. So with 13 points, this knife is going to the C tier, and W deserves that in my opinion. And this is the ultimate tier list with our rating of 3 different categories. I hope you enjoyed the video. This was a pretty fun video to make. I'm sorry for the longer video, but it is a lot of knives in this game. So I hope you guys are as excited for CS2 as I am. We're probably 3 weeks away now, maybe even 2 weeks. And here's my rating, so let me know if you agree or disagree with anything. I understand the M9 rating is crazy, but blame the animations for it, alright? I'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you for watching, motherfuckers.